From ancient cults in Egypt and Rome to terrifying groups still operating in secret today, these are evil ancient cults that they try to erase from history.
We have the Agape Lodge. I've spoken about Jack Parsons before, but I had absolutely no idea that the American rocket scientist was also involved in occult practices. In the early 1940s, Parsons founded a cult-like group called the Agape Lodge, which was affiliated with Aleister Crowley's religious movement, the Lemma. The lodge was based in Pasadena, California, and practiced a form of ceremonial magic that aimed to invoke spiritual entities and to achieve personal transformation. Apparently, these entities included them trying to raise the Antichrist. In 1945, L. Ron Hubbard, who would later go on to found the Church of Scientology, joined the Agape Lodge and became closely involved with Parsons. The two men engaged in a series of magical rituals and experiments, including an attempt to create a homunculus, sorry if I said that wrong, a miniature human-like creature through alchemy. The relationship became strained when Hubbard convinced Parsons to invest a large sum of money into a business venture, which he then used to leave the country with Parsons' wife. I mean, fair enough, I think that would strain any relationship. Even the demons were like, damn, that was absolutely savage. The Agape Lodge disbanded shortly thereafter, of course, but the influence of Parsons and his esoteric practices continued to be felt in the world of occultism and popular culture. In our number 9 spot today, we have Ophite cultus Sathanis, also known as Our Lady of Ender Coven. This was a small satanic group founded by Herbert Arthur Sloan in the 1940s. The group was based in Los Angeles and practiced a form of Luciferianism, which emphasized the worship of Satan as a liberating force. The name Ophite refers to the ancient Gnostic sect known as the Ophites, who worshipped a serpent or dragon as a symbol of divine wisdom. The group's beliefs were heavily influenced by the writings of Aleister Crowley, as well as the teachings of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which we spoke about last time, and other occult groups as well. The Ophite cultus Sathanis was known for its use of ritual magic and its promotion of sexual liberation and exploration. The group's rituals involved the invocation of demonic entities and the use of symbols, music, and dance. While the group was relatively small and short-lived, it had a significant impact on the development of modern satanic and occult movements, and its influence can still be felt in these circles today. In our number 8 spot today, we have Michelle Remembers. You might remember this one. Michelle Remembers is a controversial book that was written by Michelle Smith and her psychiatrist Lawrence Pazder, which was published in 1980. The book details Smith's alleged recovery of repressed memories of ritual harm at the hands of a satanic cult. According to the book, Smith claimed to have been harmed by members of the cult who allegedly engaged in a range of horrific acts, including killings, consuming flesh, and the use of demonic entities. The book's claims sparked widespread public concern and fear about the existence of satanic cults in the United States. The book's veracity has been heavily criticized and debunked by numerous experts and scholars who argue that Smith's memories were likely the result of suggestive therapy techniques employed by Pazder rather than actual experiences of these things. This criticism is also only fueled by the fact that Michelle and her psychiatrist Lawrence went on to divorce their respective spouses, marry each other, and then went on speaking tours. At the end of the day, however, I wasn't there, so who am I to say what happened for sure? Despite the controversy surrounding Michelle Remembers, the book has had a significant impact on popular culture and the public's perception of satanic cults. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Illuminati. You probably have heard of the Illuminati before, but did you know where it really all started? The Illuminati is a secret society that is believed to have originated in Bavaria, Germany in the 18th century, and they have been accused of engaging in satanic practices. It's said to have been founded by Adam Weishaupt, a professor of law at the University of Ingolstadt. The goals of the Illuminati are often shrouded in mystery and conspiracy theories, but they are said to have aimed to promote rationalism and free thought, as well as to oppose the influence of the Catholic Church. Of course, things change over time, and that includes the beliefs surrounding this mysterious organization. In today's day and age, for those who claim the group still exists, the Illuminati has become the subject of numerous conspiracy theories that suggest they are involved in controlling world events and governments while still maintaining that satanic image. Despite the controversy and secrecy surrounding the Illuminati, its influence and impact on history remains a subject of interest and speculation for many people. In our number 6 spot today, we have the 9th Circle. The Ninth Circle is a controversial and secretive group that is alleged to engage in satanic rituals that involve some pretty dark and horrifying things, including things like deadly sacrifices and flesh consuming. The group is said to operate globally with members from various countries around the world. I'll be honest, while the rumors and stories are aplenty, no one is absolutely certain that the group really exists. Is it fictional, or is it the world's most horrifying but best kept secret? Despite the controversy, the cult has gained a significant following among those who believe in its existence and the supposed atrocities it commits. The Ninth Circle cult remains a subject of controversy and speculation, with some viewing it as a legitimate threat to public safety, while others see it as just a baseless conspiracy theory. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Decadent Movement. The Decadent Movement was less of a cult and was more of a cultural and artistic movement that emerged in Europe in the late 19th century. It was characterized by a rejection of conventional morality and a celebration of excess, luxury, and, well, decadence. Decadent artists and writers sought to break free from the restrictions of traditional values and explore more taboo subjects such as sex, death, and the occult. They were known to celebrate Satan more in an artistic way rather than a religious way. The movement was influenced by a variety of factors, including the decline of aristocratic society, the rise of industrialization, and the growing influence of scientific rationalism. Decadent artists often depicted a world of boredom, decay, and degeneration, and their works were characterized by ornate and stylized language, vivid imagery, and a preoccupation with the senses. Some of the most famous figures associated with the Decadent movement include writers like Oscar Wilde and Charles Baudelaire, the latter being the person who wrote The Flowers of Evil and Litanies to Satan. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Brotherhood of the Golden Arrow. The Brotherhood of the Golden Arrow was a mystical and occult society founded by Maria de Neglauska in Paris in the early 20th century. Neglauska was a Russian occultist and author who claimed to have received divine revelations and messages from a group of advanced beings called the Unknown Superiors. The Brotherhood was based on the principles of the third term of the Trinity, which proposed a union of the masculine and feminine principles through the agency of a third neutral principle, and they also worshipped Lucifer, the serpent. The group practiced a form of sexual mysticism that they believed would lead to the attainment of higher consciousness and spiritual enlightenment. Members of the Brotherhood were known as initiates and participated in rituals that involved the use of symbols, music, dance, and sexual practices. The group was highly secretive and attracted a small but devoted following of intellectuals, artists, and writers. In our number 3 spot today, we have Procter & Gamble. Okay, not a cult, but a huge company. There has long been urban legends surrounding this company that suggest it is related to Satanism. I will say these are just rumors and conspiracies, and many people have done the work to try and debunk them, but when I came across this wild theory, I just had to share it with you. The idea that the former CEO of Procter & Gamble, John Smale, was involved in Satanism is a well-known conspiracy theory that has been circulating for decades, and the theory is based on the company's logo, which allegedly includes a depiction of Satan or the devil. People claim that John went on national television and shared how happy he was that the United States was so open-minded because now he could admit that the company had donated large sums of their profits to satanic cults. While no one has been able to produce a tape of him saying this, I just think this absolutely wild rumor was one worth sharing. I mean, who really knows? The conspiracy theory about Smale's supposed involvement in Satanism is believed to have originated from a rival company, Amway, which spread false rumors about Procter & Gamble in an attempt to damage its reputation. Despite being debunked numerous times, the rumor has persisted and continues to be spread by conspiracy theorists and anti-occult groups. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Process Church of the Final Judgment. This church was a religious cult that emerged in the 1960s and 1970s. The group was founded in the United Kingdom by Mary Ann McLean and Robert de Grimston, and it combined elements of Christianity, Satanism, and the occult. The group believed in a dualistic worldview in which Satan and Christ were seen as complementary forces. The Process Church also had a strong focus on apocalyptic themes and believed that the end of the world was imminent. The group's rituals were often performed in black robes and involved chanting, dancing, and other forms of ecstatic practices. Despite its controversial beliefs, the group gained a following in the United States and attracted several high-profile celebrities. However, the group's controversial beliefs and practices eventually led to its decline, and it disbanded in the 1970s. Today, the legacy of the Process Church continues to fascinate and intrigue those interested in the history of religious cults. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Catherin Monovoisin. During the reign of Louis XIV, poison was one of those things that you really just had to worry about. It was on the rise as an easy and sneaky way to take people out and to change the course of inheritance and influence. Because of the worries surrounding possible poisonings and stories of people close to the king doing some shady stuff, investigations began. It was soon found out that the king's chief mistress, the Marquis de Montespan, was said to be quite the client of Catherin. Catherin was a Parisian salesperson who sold powders and potions that were meant to catch the attention for the king. You know, love potion stuff. And among these love potion stories were also the stories of horrifying rituals and rites in order to get these alleged powers. These stories, of course, terrified the king, and this led for him to order Catherin to be burned at the stake. And not only this, but hundreds of others were implicated as well. Some passed from the conditions they were being held under, others were executed, and some saw punishments that spared their lives, but their reputations were forever tarnished. For the chief mistress, however, well, although she was connected to this entire ordeal, she was the mother of several of the king's children, and because of this close connection to the king, she wasn't arrested or tried. Instead, though, she was retired and sent to a convent to live the rest of her life.
And we're starting things off with Nexium. Nexium was a secretive self-help organization founded in 1998 by Keith Raniere, initially promoting personal development courses. It eventually devolved into a highly manipulative cult. Not that any cults are really not manipulative, but anyway, Raniere's leadership tactics were incredibly exploitive, preying on vulnerable individuals seeking personal growth. He established a hierarchical system within the group where women were branded with his initials, and some were coerced into engaging in physically intimate relationships with him. This was labeled as this secret sisterhood of sorts, but it was really just a means of control. Raniere used deceptive tactics to maintain his power and influence, isolating members from their families and blackmailing them. Many who attempted to leave faced threats and legal battles carried out by the group. In 2019, Raniere was convicted of his crimes and sentenced to 120 years in prison in 2020. Number 9, the Order of the Solar Temple. This group was founded in 1984 in Geneva by Joseph de Mambro and Luc Jouret. The group took heavy inspiration from the Knights Templar, at least in their appearance, all wearing white robes with red crosses. There was also a heavy amount of secrecy as to what went on in the group, and members had to ascend in the ranks undergoing initiation rites in order to learn the secrets of the group. They also believed that the end of the world was imminent and that the apocalypse would happen at some point in the mid-90s. Just some point. Very safe way of convincing your members of your doomsday prophecy. At some point soon. The group were also taught by their brilliant leaders that life was just an illusion and that the physical body must be shed in order to experience a higher existence on another planet. De Mambro and Jouret ended up convincing several of the members to take their own lives. 53 members, including Jouret and De Mambro, took their own lives at various locations across Switzerland. They were found dead by authorities after remote control devices had ignited fires at the various locations. And then the following year, similar incidents occurred in 2 other locations, France and Canada. Next up, we have Synanon. Chuck E. Dederich founded Synanon in 1958 in Santa Monica, California. Started out as a drug rehabilitation program, although the methods used for care were pretty extreme. The whole idea was quitting cold turkey, which is not a bad thing at all, but in terms of the therapeutic side, members took part in an activity called The Game, where each member would open up about themselves and then receive verbal attacks from all the other members. People also lived at the compound. I feel like if you ever join some kind of religious or self-help kind of group and you're required to stay in a shared living space, like indefinitely, it's a good chance you're probably in a cult. Oh, and members were forced to pay large sums of money for membership and perform physical labor. Detterich's methods only got worse though, as he enforced stricter rules on the group and incorporated brainwashing techniques in order to assert his control over them. Eventually, he ordered 2 members to take out a lawyer who was representing one of the members, saying she had been brainwashed and held at the compound against her will. The 2 members put a venomous snake in the lawyer's mailbox, and he nearly died after being bit. Chuck received a very light sentence and a fine, but was chucked out of the cult. Synanon did continue on without him until 1991, though. The Order was an American white supremacist group that was active between September of 1983 and December of 1984. Robert J. Matthews, the leader of the Order, was a fanatical figure with a rather dangerous agenda. He believed in a vision of a white ethno-state and advocated for a race war to achieve this goal. Matthews encouraged his followers to engage in acts of violence against perceived enemies. Under his guidance, the Order carried out a series of criminal activities to fund their operations and further their agenda. This included bank robberies and armored car heists, stolen funds being used to purchase weapons and explosives. The group also targeted individuals they viewed as threats, which included law enforcement officers. The Order's violent actions resulted in the death of radio talk show host Alan Berg, who was just one of many enemies the group had on their hit list. The FBI launched a manhunt to apprehend Matthews and put an end to the Order. In a deadly confrontation at a home in Whidbey Island, Matthews engaged in a shootout with law enforcement after refusing to surrender. The gunfire ignited a fire in the house, taking Matthews down with it. Next up, we have the Church of Euthanasia. Now, this one certainly isn't as evil as the other cults on this list, but it's still pretty extreme. I would not be able to stand hanging out with any of these people. The Church of Euthanasia, founded in Boston, Massachusetts in 1992 by Chris Korda, is a controversial cult known for its extremist views on population control and environmentalism. They've been considered by many as promoting evil ideologies due to the cult's radical stance on reducing the human population through pretty disturbing means. The church advocates for taking one's own life, cannibalism, just a couple of different methods. They set out to achieve their goal of lowering the global population. Now, while the church does claim to use satire to make a point about overpopulation's impact on the environment, their slogan is pretty disgusting, and no, I can't say it on here, nor would I really want to. Next up, we have the Narco-Satanists led by Adolfo Constanzo. His group was mostly active in Mexico in the 1980s, revolving around a combination of drug trafficking and occult practices. Constanzo grew up with a mother and stepfather who were both involved in crime. He also had this quote-unquote sorcerer dude who he had apprenticed under, who he would perform ritualistic sacrifices of animals with. Eventually, he gathered a bit of a following of powerful hitmen and drug traffickers. He exerted a strong hold over them, convincing them that he had supernatural powers. And under his influence, the cult engaged in illegal activities, including drug smuggling and violent rituals. Constanzo's evil deeds culminated in a series of these ritualistic murders where innocent victims were brutally sacrificed in an attempt to enhance the cult's powers. Finally, in 1989, law enforcement closed in on the group and Constanzo pulled a machine gun on authorities, leading to a final confrontation before ordering a fellow member to take his life. Number 4, Hanohana Sampaguyo. The Hanohana Sampaguyo cult was a religious group founded in Japan by Hogen Fukunaga. Fukunaga claimed to be the reincarnation of Buddha. Here we go. And convinced his followers that he possessed divine powers. The cult became known for its pretty extreme financial exploitation of the members. Fukunaga convinced his followers to donate significant amounts of money, claiming that doing so would bring them blessings and aid in their spiritual development. He also claimed he could diagnose people by reading their feet and would charge like $900 for these readings. Turns out the guy started the group while he was in tremendous amounts amounts of debt, so he was just a full-on swindler, used car salesman type guy. He knew full well what he was doing. He didn't actually have some deranged belief in his message, and that's what's truly evil about this guy. He amassed some serious wealth through these donations, living a lavish lifestyle while his followers suffered financially. Next up, we have David Koresh's Branch Davidians. The Branch Davidians cult was a religious group that gained attention due to its leader, David Koresh. The story actually begins, though, with Benjamin Roden, who founded it in 1955. But it was David who later emerged as the prominent figure. He joined the group in the early 80s, claiming to be a prophet and the final messenger of God. His manipulative tactics quickly became evident as he instilled fear and loyalty amongst his followers through strict control and psychological manipulation. He dictated every aspect of their lives, including relationships, daily activities, and inside the cult, he practiced polygamy and engaged in inappropriate relationships with some of his female followers. Can't go into too much detail on that. Common theme amongst these supremely morally superior cult leaders, though. In 1993, the cult's troubles escalated with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or the ATF, who attempted to execute a search warrant on the cult's compound in Waco, Texas. The raid turned into this violent shootout, resulting in the deaths of several agents and cult members. It led to a 51-day standoff between the Branch Davidians and law enforcement. And the standoff ended in absolute disaster when the compound caught fire and the flames just started engulfing all these buildings, resulting in the deaths of 76 Branch Davidians, including the leader David Koresh, or Koresh. Next up, we have Aum Shinrikyo. The Aum Shinrikyo cult was a religious group founded in Japan in 1987 by Shoko Asahara. Initially, the cult kind of presented itself as a spiritual organization with the aim of helping people achieve enlightenment, but as time passed, it became pretty evident that the group had more malevolent intentions. Asahara pulled the strings, manipulating his followers into committing a bunch of horrific acts. He instilled a sense of blind loyalty amongst his disciples, using mind control techniques to exert complete control over their thoughts, actions. But under his direction, Aum Shinrikyo carried out a series of violent acts, including, of course, the infamous Tokyo subway sarin gas attack in 1995 that resulted in the deaths of 13 people and injured thousands. The act was planned to just be the tip of the iceberg, too, in the extreme measures they were going to use to fulfill their goals. Asahara claimed to prophesize this apocalyptic vision and believed in imminent global destruction, leading his followers to stockpile weapons and engage in activities aimed at kind of destabilizing society. He had this complete disregard for human life and was willing to harm others to fulfill his ambitions. He even made a statement about how disappointed with what he saw as a low death toll in the 1995 subway attacks. And finally, we have the Anthill Kids. The Anthill Kids was a cult led by Roch Thériault in 1977. The group was based in Canada and followed a pretty twisted belief system. Essentially, they were a doomsday cult, but Thériault's charismatic manipulation led his followers to believe he possessed divine powers and that with his help, they would be the sole survivors of this coming apocalypse. Pretty standard cult stuff, but man, this is the worst cult I've ever read about. It's really gross. Can't talk about most of it on here, but anyway. Under his influence, the cult members isolated themselves from the outside world, creating a closed, kind of secretive community on a mountainside that their divine leader didn't even help them build. He just kind of sat back and watched. And behind this facade of spiritual enlightenment, Thériault subjected his followers to severe physical and psychological mistreatment. He enforced strict and incredibly bizarre rules on them, and he started becoming increasingly more erratic in his behavior. His true nature came out in acts of violence and control, inflicting harm on his followers in the name of discipline and purification. Some members endured severe physical torture torture, including beatings. They'd have amputations done on them. This guy claimed he had magical powers that would allow him to reattach his followers' body parts, and his reign of terror eventually led to the death of one of his many wives, and he was eventually arrested but received an incredibly light sentence because it's Canada, and wouldn't you know it, he went back to doing the exact same crap before being arrested again, and years later a fellow inmate put an end to him for good.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Ordo Templi Orientis. The Ordo Templi Orientis is a controversial esoteric organization that was founded in the early 20th century by Karl Kellner and Theodor Reuss in Germany. Originally meant to be modeled after and associated with European Freemasonry, under the leadership of famous occultist Aleister Crowley, the group had a change in philosophy to be more aligned with Crowley's principles of Thelema. The cult is known for its secretive nature and controversial practices, including the use of ritualistic magic and sexual practices as a means of spiritual advancement. The organization has a hierarchical structure and emphasizes the importance of individualism and personal freedom. Of course, like with most cults, there are some controversial practices, but despite this controversy, the group has attracted a following among those interested in occultism and alternative spirituality. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Order of the Black Sun. The Order of the Black Sun is a secretive and controversial cult that has been the subject of much speculation and debate in recent years. Founded in the early 20th century, the group is believed to be based in Europe and has been linked to a number of bizarre and disturbing practices, including human sacrifice, occult rituals, and the worship of ancient deities. Members of the cult are said to be highly secretive and tightly knit, with their activities shrouded in mystery and hidden from public view. Many have claimed that the Order of the Black Sun is involved in a wide range of illegal and nefarious activities that include high-level crimes, as well as the manipulation of political and financial systems for their own gain. Many people claim that this group was founded by Heinrich Himmler and that its members included many high-ranking SS officers. People also have suggested that this cult attempted to use demon summoning as a way to help them win World War II. Even the demons were like, no, absolutely not. Despite numerous investigations into the group, very little concrete information is known about the Order of the Black Sun, and many questions remain unanswered about their true motives and activities. However, what is certain is that this enigmatic cult continues to captivate and intrigue people around the world, with many eager to uncover the truth about this very shadowy organization. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Club was a notorious secret society that existed in Britain during the 18th century. It was an extensive club that included some of the wealthiest and most influential people of the time, including politicians, aristocrats, and members of the royal family. The club was known for its very decadent parties, which were said to involve heavy drinking and gambling and all of the things people think these elite secretive parties hold. However, there were also rumors of more sinister activities, such as satanic rituals and human sacrifice. The Hellfire Club was shrouded in secrecy, and its members went to great lengths to keep their activities hidden from the public. However, their reputation as a group of debauched and immoral individuals eventually caught up with them, and they became the subject of scandalous rumors and gossip. Today, the legacy of the Hellfire Club lives on in pop culture, with many books, movies, TV shows featuring references to the group and their supposed activities. Despite these references, though, the true nature of the club's activities remain a mystery to this day. We're just left to speculate and come up with conspiracy theories. Drop your best one down below. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Order of the Nine Angels. This culty cult is a controversial and secretive organization that has been associated with the occult, Satanism, as well as having ties to some pretty controversial, hateful, and horrible beliefs. The group's origins are murky, but it is believed to have been founded in the United Kingdom in the 1970s. The ONA claims to be based on the principles of traditional Satanism and advocates for a return to pre-Christian pagan society. The teachings of the group are said to be highly esoteric and involve a very complex system of rituals, beliefs, and practices, which sounds really cool and mysterious until you hear that the group has been accused of promoting violence, extremism, and hate. Many people have accused the group of practicing black magic, as well as using the practice of summoning demons, and apparently this group has even been able to be linked to horrifying crimes, which include killing killings. Because of the nature of the controversy surrounding this group, its teachings have been banned in several countries, but despite these bans, the group continues to operate in secret, with its members communicating online and in private meetings. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was a mystical and magical organization that emerged in the late 19th century in England. It was founded by 3 prominent figures: William Wynne Westcott, Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers, and William Robert Woodman. All 3 of these guys were fascinated by the esoteric teachings of ancient civilizations and sought to create a system that combined spiritual and mystical practices. The order drew upon various mystical and occult traditions, including Kabbalah, alchemy, astrology, and tarot, in order to create a comprehensive system of magical practices. Its teaching emphasized personal development, spiritual evolution, and the attainment of spiritual knowledge and enlightenment. The order's rituals and teachings were highly secretive and were only accessible to members who had undergone a rigorous initiation process. Its members included prominent figures such as Aleister Crowley, of course, W.B. Yeats, and Arthur Edward Waite, who went on to make significant contributions to the fields of mysticism and occultism. Despite the relatively short existence of this group, the order has had a profound impact on modern Western esotericism and continues to inspire spiritual seekers and magicians to this day. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Kabiri Mysteries. The Kabiri Mysteries refer to a set of ancient Greek religious practices and rituals associated with the Kabiri deities, a group of enigmatic gods worshipped in various regions of Greece, particularly on the island of Samothrace. The mysteries involved secretive initiation ceremonies that were performed exclusively by the initiated members of the cult and were believed to impart special knowledge and spiritual power to the participants. It's one of the most secretive religious groups in history, and the exact nature of the group remains the subject of intense debate among scholars because there is so little information to go on. It is generally believed that the cult was closely connected to the cults of Demeter and Persephone, and that the initiation rites involved elements of mysticism, fertility rites, and underworld symbolism. This mystery group exerted a significant influence on the development of Greek religion and culture, and were celebrated by various communities throughout the Hellenistic world. Despite the mystery that shrouds them, the Kabiri Mysteries continues to fascinate scholars and enthusiasts alike, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the ancient religious practices of Greece. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Church of Satan. The Church of Satan is a religious organization founded in 1966 by Anton LaVey. Despite its name, the Church of Satan does not worship Satan as a deity, but rather advocates for individualism, self-indulgence, and rational thinking. LaVey created the Church of Satan as a reaction to what he saw as the hypocrisy of mainstream religion and the repressive nature of society at the time. The Church of Satan's philosophy is centered around the concept that Satan is a symbol of rebellion and individual freedom. Members believe in indulging in their desires and pursuing their own happiness as long as it doesn't harm others. The church also promotes the idea of magic as a tool for self-improvement and self-realization. Heard that's where the demon summoning comes in. Demons aren't all bad, some can be helpful, you just need to know what you're doing. Of course, with a name like the Church of Satan, you're gonna face some controversy, and this group certainly has received its fair share of criticism over the years, with many accusing it of promoting evil and immorality. The organization maintains that it is a legitimate religion with a unique philosophy and worldview. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Temple of Set. The Temple of Set is a religious organization that was founded in 1975 by Michael Aquino, a former member of the Church of Satan. Wow, what a crazy connection. The Temple of Set is based on the philosophy of Setianism, and the group mainly focuses on the worship of Set, an ancient Egyptian deity associated with chaos, strength, and individuality. The Temple of Set is unique among religious organizations in that it places a strong emphasis on individualism and self-realization. It also incorporates elements of ancient Egyptian religion, as well as ideas from other Western esoteric traditions. Members of the Temple of Set are encouraged to pursue knowledge and self-discovery through practices such as meditation, ritual magic, and intellectual inquiry. The organization is very secretive and very exclusive, with membership only available through invitation. While believing in and worshipping the deity, those who belong to this group also believe in the existence of demons and other supernatural entities. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Manson family. Started by the horrible Charles Manson, this story starts off off when Manson was released from prison in 1967, where he then moved to San Francisco, where he gained a small following that would eventually go on to be the cult known as the Family. This charismatic yet very unstable ex-convict attracted a group of young and vulnerable followers who believed he was a messianic figure with profound insights into society and the future of humanity. And not only this, but they also believed that he had supernatural powers as well. The group eventually moved to an abandoned ranch outside of Los Angeles, and it was here that Manson continued to brainwash his followers and manipulate them with his own religious philosophies. Manson's followers carried out these brutal killings under his instructions, which he claimed were a part of a twisted plan to incite a race war he called Helter Skelter. In the end, Manson and several of his followers were eventually arrested and charged for the crimes, with a trial that was highly publicized. Manson's bizarre behavior and manipulative tactics in court further solidified his reputation as a deranged cult leader, and the story of this cult has had a lasting impact on American culture and continues to fascinate and absolutely horrify people to this day. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar, also known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, was a medieval Christian military order that was founded in the 12th century to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land during the Crusades. The order became known for their bravery and skill in battle, and they quickly gained wealth and power throughout Europe. The Knights Templar became one of the most influential and respected organizations of their time, with members including knights, monks, and priests who took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They were known for their distinctive white mantles with a red cross and their motto, "Not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name give glory." However, their power and wealth eventually became a threat to some European monarchs and the church, which many claim led to their downfall. The Knights Templar were disbanded in the early 14th century, especially since they were being accused of heresy and devil worship by the Catholic Church.
The cult of Moloch is one of the darkest and most chilling in history. Moloch was a god worshipped by ancient civilizations, especially in the Phoenician and the Canaanite regions, and is most famous for the horrific rituals followers carried out in his name. Moloch is often depicted as a giant bull with a hollow body where sacrifices would be made. The cult practiced human sacrifice, especially on the young, where parents would offer their own offspring to Moloch in exchange for favors or blessings. Usually what would happen is the victim would be placed into the hands of a metal idol, which would then be heated up till it burnt the person alive. The practice was so brutal and widespread that it became notorious in ancient history. Even the Bible felt the need to bring it up, condemning it as a sin. And that's when you know you've messed up. In 2019, archaeologists in Egypt discovered a mysterious temple at the ancient port of Berenike along the Red Sea. The temple had an Egyptian design, but it was used by a group called the Belamis, not Egyptians. But this semi-nomadic group had adopted Egyptian religious practices, and the temple was dedicated to the Egyptian god Khonsu, a falcon-headed deity. There was a very ominous inscription found inside the temple, which translated to something along the lines of, "It is improper to boil a head in here." Keywords being in here. You can boil a head anywhere else. Turns out the Belamis had a strange ritual involving falcon heads. Now, not much is known about this group. We don't know if they ever sacrificed humans, but they did for sure boil the heads of birds, likely falcons, before offering them to Khonsu. The Thugi cult aren't just a made-up group from Indiana Jones. This was a real cult that existed in India from around the 14th to the 19th century. The thugs, as they were called, were essentially professional killers who worshipped the Hindu goddess Kali. They disguised themselves as travelers and gained the trust of unsuspecting victims, often pilgrims, before strangling them with a ceremonial cloth. The cult believed that by offering these deaths to the goddess, they would be rewarded with her protection and blessings. The thugs went to great lengths to avoid detection, using clever tricks and often hiding bodies to make it harder for authorities to track them. It wasn't until the British colonial forces in India took notice and cracked down on them in the 19th century that the full scale of their activities came to light. It turned out the Thugi were responsible for the deaths of thousands, if not more, making them one of the deadliest cults in history. Set or Seth is an ancient Egyptian god, often associated with chaos, storms, violence, and disorder. While Set was worshipped by some during ancient Egyptian times, his cult was considered one of the most sinister, especially when you consider his reputation as the god of destruction. Set's worshippers were typically seen as rebels or outcasts. During the time of the New Kingdom, there were different movements that sought to elevate Set's status, especially during the reign of the pharaoh Akhenaten, who had been pushing for the worship of Aten, a different god. But supporters of Set resisted. The cult was known to carry out dark practices like necromancy. Set himself was depicted as a god who was always in conflict with other gods, particularly Osiris, and he was believed to have been responsible for the death of Osiris. His worship involved not just the typical offerings to a god, but also darker, more secretive rituals that often revolved around creating chaos and destruction. Hecate was a goddess in ancient Greek and Roman mythology, associated with witchcraft, magic, necromancy, and the night. Cults centered around her weren't as widely practiced as some other gods, but it still had a significant impact on ancient society. Hecate was often depicted as a goddess with 3 heads, symbolizing her dominion over crossroads, the underworld, and the skies. The cults surrounding her involved rituals that were often secret and centered around dark magic. Worshippers were believed to engage in sorcery, and some ancient texts also talk about her followers using potions and spells to summon spirits, control the dead, or curse their enemies. People who were part of Hecate's worship were said to have carried out a lot of the rituals at crossroads at night, as those were seen as liminal places that connected the living world to the spiritual. Many of these practices bordered on the forbidden, involving BLOOD, sacrifices, curses, and other dark rituals. It was believed that through Hecate's power, they could manipulate fate itself. The Black Hand was a secret military society founded in 1901 in Serbia, mostly made up of Serbian nationalists. Their main goal was to unite all South Slavic territories, especially those under the control of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, with the Kingdom of Serbia. And how were they going to do that? Through political violence. They operated in secret with a deep sense of loyalty among their members. The Black Hand is most infamously known for its involvement in the death of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Austria in 1914, which is often seen as the spark that set off World War I. The killing of Ferdinand set off this chain of events, leading Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia, which then triggered alliances and ultimately pulled most of Europe into a full-scale war. The Order of Skull and Bones is one of the oldest and most famous secret societies in the United States. To the chagrin of many of its members, I'm sure, people just tend to not trust you very much when they find out you're part of a secret society full of wealthy elites. Founded in 1832 at Yale University, it was originally called the Brotherhood of Death. The society has always been mysterious, but its members are some of the most influential people in the world, including 2 US presidents, the Bush family. Membership is exclusive, and only a select few students at Yale are invited to join each year. They gather in a building known as the Tomb, where they meet twice a week for secret rituals that are said to be inspired by Freemasonry. As for exactly what happens in these rituals, that's for them to know and them to hide. There are plenty of conspiracy theories surrounding the group, though, one of the most popular being that it helped shape the CIA. In 2007, the CIA even issued a statement denying any connection to the group, but I mean, who the hell is gonna just take their word for it? Next up is the Priory of Scion. The secret society, founded in 1099, is surrounded by both mystery and controversy. It's not even entirely certain whether this group is real or not. Some people believe it was a hoax invented by a man named Pierre Plantard in 1956, who wanted to claim the French throne. Others think the Priory of Scion is a genuine ancient organization. The group's story is tied to ideas about royal bloodlines, with claims that certain members are descendants of King David and even Jesus. The Priory's goal, according to some theories, is to establish a new European empire that would bring peace and prosperity to the world and eventually create a new world order. Priory of Scion gained widespread attention after the release of the book The Holy BLOOD and the Holy Grail in 1982, which suggested that famous figures like Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci were involved in the group. The society's true purpose, if it really did exist, is still a mystery, and some believe that the rumors about it being a hoax were deliberately spread to keep people from uncovering its secrets. In the 60s, a survey team came across some very strange rectangular stone structures in northwestern Saudi Arabia. These structures, later called mustalial, weren't seen as anything particularly significant at first, but as more were discovered, it became clear that they were part of a much larger ancient cult. Thousands of mustalial structures have been found across an area about the size of Poland, and some are incredibly large, even bigger than the Eiffel Tower. The structures date back over 7,000 years, making them older than the pyramids of Giza and Stonehenge. They're believed to have been used for ritual purposes, with many of them containing animal skulls that were likely part of some sacrificial ceremonies. Just skulls though, no other body parts have been found, which means that the sacrifices would have likely happened somewhere else, otherwise we'd have the rest of the bones. What is clear though, is that this group, whoever they were, carried out their practices over a very large area. Göbekli Tepe is a fascinating archaeological site in Turkey that dates back around 11,000 years. It's known for its huge stone pillars and intricate carvings, but there's a lot that researchers don't know about the place. First of all, there's no clear evidence that people actually lived at the site, even though it kind of looks like a place people lived, and no graves have been found there. But human bones have been discovered, just not in the types of states you'd expect. They've found pieces of skulls that appear to have been carved into or altered deliberately. Some historians think this could be evidence of a cult-like group at Göbekli Tepe, though no one can say for sure what the purpose of their rituals would have been. The other strange thing is that the skulls were more crudely carved compared to the more impressive art and architecture found at other parts of the site. It's possible that the skulls were marked or disfigured as part of some sort of ritual or punishment, but no one can say for sure. First up, we have the evil cult of Sobek. This was an ancient Egyptian cult dedicated to the god Sobek, often depicted as a man with the head of a crocodile. As one of the oldest deities in Egyptian mythology, Sobek held significant importance, especially in the regions surrounding the Nile River. The crocodile, a powerful and fearsome creature, was the sacred animal of Sobek. Crocodiles were often mummified and buried in tombs as offerings to the god. Like many other ancient Egyptian cults, though, the cult of Sobek declined in importance over time, but the legacy of Sobek and his crocodile symbolism continued to be present in Egyptian culture and art for centuries afterwards. Next on the list is the cult of Cybele or Cybele, it's different pronunciations, but the cult of Cybele or Cybele, also known as the cult of the Great Mother Goddess, was a powerful and influential religious movement in the ancient world, centered around the figure of Cybele, a complex, multifaceted deity often associated with fertility, nature, and sovereignty. The cult was renowned for its passionate and sometimes extreme rituals. One of the most interesting aspects of the cult was the practice of self-castration by its priests, known as the Galli. These priests, often driven by religious ecstasy, would castrate themselves as a symbolic act of devotion to the goddess. The extreme act was believed to bring them closer to the divine and to Cybele herself. The cult's rituals were often characterized by wild and ecstatic behavior. Followers would engage in frenzied dances, self-flagellation, so they'd flog themselves, as well as other forms of bodily sacrifice. These practices were seen as a way to connect with the divine and to experience a profound sense of spiritual ecstasy through pain, it seems. In a way, they kind of remind me of the Cenobites from Hellraiser, and that is pretty disturbing. Next, we have Angel's Landing. Angel's Landing, a secluded 20-acre compound outside Wichita, Kansas, was the home of Daniel Perez, aka Lou Castro, followers in the early 2000s. Castro, a self-proclaimed angel and seer, convinced his followers of his divine powers, promising glimpses into the future and the ability to heal the sick. Yet, this supposed spiritual leader was living a life of luxury. He was driving expensive cars, he wore designer clothes, but how was he making all this money? Who was funding all this stuff? It was pretty fishy, and the secretive nature of the compound, the lavish lifestyle of their leader, everything, so this of course piqued the interest of the law, and their suspicions only got stronger when Patricia Hughes, a member of the group, mysteriously died on the compound in 2003. Then the following year, her husband passed away in a seemingly accidental death. Detective Ron Goodwin started delving into Angel's Landing and the lives of the members, uncovering a pretty disturbing pattern. all had to do with life insurance policies. They were often taken out on members, mysteriously coinciding with their untimely deaths, occurring every 2.5 years or so. Major red flag, and at the center of it all was the elusive figure of Lou Castro himself. Now, they did extensive investigations, but no records of his past or financial dealings could be found. It wasn't until February of 2015 that Lou Castro's crimes finally came to light, and having enough evidence to finally convict the man, he received 20 life sentences. Now we have the Church of the Lamb of God, often dubbed the Mormon Manson family. Ervil LeBaron founded the Church of the Lamb of God after a falling out with his brother Joel's sect. Claiming direct divine revelation, LeBaron twisted a fringe Mormon doctrine, BLOOD atonement, to justify the killing of sinners as a means of spiritual purification. With 13 wives and 51 children, LeBaron amassed a cult following of hundreds who carried out his orders with insane precision. Over 2 decades, his followers were implicated in the lives of over 20 people, including rival polygamist leaders and those deemed traitors to the cult. In 1979, LeBaron was arrested in Mexico and extradited to the United States, where he was convicted of heinous crimes and sentenced to life in prison. Though he passed away in prison in 1981, his legacy of violence kept going. The hit list he left behind continued to inspire acts of violence even after he'd passed away. The dark and disturbing story of Ervil LeBaron and his cult has been the subject of tons of documentaries and true crime shows, and no wonder. One of the first things this guy did when he started up his group was put a hit out on his very own brother. A little later, he ordered his followers to kill his younger brother, Verlin. Heaven's Gate is up next on the list, and oh boy, where do I start with Heaven's Gate? This is one of the creepiest cults I've ever heard of. Probably because there's so much accompanying video with them, so you really get a chance to see who these people really were. They weren't just this ethereal thing that you're picturing in your brain. These were real people who, while definitely strange, are more average than you'd probably want them to be, considering what happened. For those that don't know, Heaven's Gate was a controversial new religious movement that gained notoriety after all its members took their own lives in 1997. Founded by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, the cult believed in a unique blend of Christian millenarianism, New Age spirituality, and UFOlogy. The core belief of Heaven's Gate was that followers could ascend to this higher level of existence by rejecting their human bodies. They believed that a spaceship was approaching Earth hidden behind a comet, and that by releasing themselves of their physical forms, i.e. taking their own lives, they'd be able to board this vessel, which would transport them to what was essentially heaven. The cult members adopted a monastic lifestyle, abstaining from all adult acts and following a strict diet. They also underwent castration to further distance themselves from their physical bodies. In March of 1997, 39 members of Heaven's Gate carried out their plan, committing mass you-know-what in a rented mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California. Next is Mithras. The Mithraic cult was renowned for its secretive nature, and its initiation rituals were no exception. These rites were veiled in mystery, with specific details remaining elusive because of the cult's emphasis on secrecy. But scholars have pieced together a general understanding of the process, which involved a series of trials and symbolic ordeals designed to test the initiate's courage, loyalty, and readiness for spiritual enlightenment. Mithraic worship often took place in underground temples called Mithrae. These subterranean spaces created a sense of otherworldliness and added to this cult's aura of secrecy. The movement to the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God. What a mouthful, right? This was a religious cult in Uganda, founded in the late 80s by Credonia Murende and Joseph Kibwatiri. They claimed to be getting messages from the Virgin Mary herself. The cult was all about following the 10 Commandments very strictly, and they even predicted that the world would end on December 31st of 1999. Now, when that didn't happen, things started to unravel. The leaders quickly shifted the doomsday prophecy to March 17th of 2000, promising a huge celebration for the big event. But instead of a party, tragedy struck. During the gathering, a fire was set inside the church, with doors and windows having purposely been blocked off. Around 530 members died in the blaze, and that wasn't all. Other cult compounds were attacked in a series of coordinated assaults. The death toll is still unclear, with estimates ranging from several hundred to over 1,000. To make matters even more mysterious, the bodies of the 5 main leaders were never found. Now we have the cult of Isis. Members dedicated themselves to the Egyptian goddess of motherhood, magic, and healing. It was one of the most widespread and influential mystery cults of the ancient world. Its appeal extended beyond Egypt, reaching across the Roman Empire and beyond. Isis was revered as a compassionate and powerful goddess who could intercede on behalf of her devotees. She was seen as a source of hope and solace, offering promises of salvation and immortality. The cult's initiation rites and secret teachings were believed to grant initiates access to divine knowledge and spiritual enlightenment. The cult's rituals were often centered around the myth of Osiris, Isis's husband and brother who was killed and resurrected. This myth symbolized the cycle of death and rebirth, offering hope for a future life beyond the grave. Now, this last one was called Love Has Won. Love Has Won is a more recent cult led by Amy Carlson, who proclaimed herself to be the reincarnation of Jesus Christ and obviously Marilyn Monroe. She also claimed to be the mother of God, so not only was she Jesus, she was also his grandmother, I guess. She also said she talked to Robin Williams after he died, and apparently Donald Trump was her dad in a past life. She also preached about lizard people secretly running the world, part of a big conspiracy keeping humanity in a low vibration state. The cult has been linked to a series of disturbing allegations, including financial exploitation, physical and emotional torment, and bizarre rituals. So wait, this woman's rituals were bizarre? I can't imagine. Carlson and her followers believed in a mix of New Age spirituality, conspiracy theories, and a sprinkling of more traditional religious beliefs. They lived in a commune and were expected to donate large sums of money to the cult. Members were often subjected to strict dietary restrictions, sleep deprivation, and forced labor. The cult's practices have been widely condemned, and several former members have come forward to share their traumatic experiences. In 2021, it was revealed that Amy Carlson had passed away. Her body was found in a house in Colorado where the group was based. By the time they found her, she was almost mummified, with her eyes nearly disintegrated. It turns out she consumed a huge amount of silver before she died, believing it would purify or heal. It was just crazy, wacko stuff.